children not able to access their right to education.
Plan hopes that with today's demonstration here in Melbourne, half a world away from the ground zero of the disease, people don't forget the devastating impact Ebola is having on nations in West Africa. Simon Love, Sky News, Melbourne.
Rohan Kent, the disaster manager from Plan International Australia, who was in that report, joins me now from Melbourne. Rohan Kent, thanks for joining us. Now,
good evening.
1 year on from the beginning of the crisis, and Plan has looked much deeper into the wider aspects and the impacts of this drastic health emergency. What are the worst of the ongoing devastating implications on children in particular?
So this is a crisis that has torn at the fabric, the social fabric and the economic fabric of these countries affected in West Africa. What we've found in our report that's concentrated on Sierra Leone and Liberia is that the health systems that were weak to start with have really started to break down. We've also found that the food security systems, because nobody's in the fields tilling the produce, nobody's selling at the markets, the prices are increasing. So the food security situation is obviously going to be a bad one going forward.
Sorry, I was going to say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just and for a child-focused agency like Plan International, we're very concerned at the lack of education opportunities for children at the moment.
I guess that we're just showing the pictures of your sort of event, if I can say that, in Melbourne today. I guess the point you were saying is nobody's taking any notice of the Ebola crisis anymore. Let's just go back to the health part of it. Almost 10,000 people were estimated to have died in Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia. But UNICEF says 16,000 children have been directly impacted. How exactly? Is that just from the death of one or both parents?
That's correct. There's about 16,600 children directly impacted through the deaths of one or more parents. And what this does, it increases their vulnerability to the social and economic structures around them. So children who may now need to go and work, may need to step out of school to do that work, and some of the work is potentially quite hazardous and dangerous, as you can appreciate. What they're also not able to do is access the education system, which acts as a protection mechanism for them. They're able to access information at school that might protect them from Ebola and other things. They're also able to connect with their peers and understand what's going on around them. By staying at home or going to work, they're missing out on these vital aspects of life.
Yeah. On the actual disease and the epidemic front, have we completely halted new cases of Ebola in Africa?
I don't think we have. I think there was a case in Liberia just last week. So this is a situation which is still ongoing. The Ebola treatment centres are starting to close down, but this is a crisis which is much more than just Ebola treatment centres.
Yeah.
It's a crisis that is going to go on for quite some time.
So you say the treatment centres are starting to close down. Are there still the hospitals and the foreign medical help that was sent from around the world operating on the ground?
Look, there is definitely, but what we do need to remember is that the hospitals and the medical teams are often in some of the highly densely populated areas, and we need to also ensure that those people and those children in the rural and the remote areas are also supported to recover from this disease.
Yeah, so you're saying beyond the actual sort of immediate health epidemic, it's had enormous damage on communities, on their ability to protect and help children who've lost parents, their ability to go to school. It's also, it must have severely depleted the health system and its resources to look after adults and children with other ongoing health needs.
Helen, you're absolutely spot on there. I think you mentioned before that vaccinations had stopped in Liberia, which is absolutely tragic for boys and girls. What we're finding out in our report is that people who don't want to actually go to the clinics to get standard medications and checkups for fear that they may be classified as Ebola patients.
Oh, really? So there's still that stigma around it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're classified as an Ebola patient, you've got a compulsory quarantine period, and you may not actually have it. So people are tending to stay home. There's a crisis around the maternal and child health systems as well. So young mums and are not having their babies in hospitals with the correct care and support. They're having them at home. So we need to make sure that this weak health system that was there before doesn't completely disintegrate. We need to support these health systems to remain strong especially for these children.
Yeah, so I presume you're also saying things with an ongoing medical need, infection control, dispensing of medicines, the vaccinations you mentioned. If people are staying away from clinics, there's going to be much more of a health impact out in the communities.
Absolutely, and just on the medicines, what we're finding is that people aren't able to access the free medicines and the free medical help that they could access. So they're at the mercy of people who are able to inflate the prices, and this is again depleting the income sources that they have already lost. So we're having a snowball effect, if you like. So this is more than a health crisis. This is beyond a health crisis now. We've got the income, we've got livelihoods, we've got food, we've got nutrition, education. It's all wrapped up into a crisis which is going to have an impact on the development gains of this area.
Yeah, so what happens to the ability of many of these communities to earn an income if so many have died? Are they able to restore some sort of economic foundation to particularly the remote communities?
Look, I think with any disaster, communities are extremely resilient, and we're finding that as well. They're able to take on the actual identification and isolation of potential patients themselves.
Itself has supported community treatment centres, so we're not sending them all the time to the Ebola treatment centres. We're making sure that they're near their communities and can be treated by their communities as well. Traditional coping mechanisms will come into play. Families will support families, although we are seeing some struggles in that sense because of the lack of support for congregation. So children are not able to go to large family events for fear of contracting the disease.
So, Rohan Kent, what is needed for these countries to recover and rebuild?
I think what's needed is a comprehensive, integrated approach. Again, taking that phrase beyond the Ebola epidemic, we're looking at a comprehensive, integrated approach that includes livelihoods, it includes food security, includes nutrition and education, all the aspects that make up our social and economic fabric. We need to integrate these into a way forward. We need to work with the governments of these countries as well as the communities. And importantly, we do need to work with boys and girls. A lot of these children have the ideas and the innovation to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again, and we need to consult them continuously so that we can actually tap their knowledge and understand how to move forward.
Rohan Kent, the Disaster Manager from Plan International Australia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Our political panel is next. Helen Coonan and Nicholas Rees join me. Take apart all the political issues. Stay with us.